Hello, my friend. Welcome back to Mick. My name's Jack, the snack that smiles back, and you're here for more stories on the internet, so here you go. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad he's not invited to my wedding? I'm a 21-year-old female, and I was at my parents' place this weekend, which is something I don't usually like to do, but my mother insists that I visit semi-regularly to keep in touch. Me and my dad have always had a pretty bad relationship, to say the least, but these days, we can have a civil conversation most of the time. What a redeemable quality about a parent. You can talk to them. We were talking about my brother's relationship and whether he would propose to his girlfriend soon, and my parents went on a tangent a la, well, you're so antisocial, who knows if you'll have a wedding? Which, honestly, I don't mind, because, low-key, it's true. And it's the kind of joke I don't mind laughing at myself. Then my dad said something along the lines of, I hope you have your wedding before I die, at least. And I kind of laughed and replied, who says you're invited to my wedding? So, context. Like I said, my dad and I have always had a difficult relationship. Growing up, he would often insult me, call me stupid, fat, ugly, say I have a terrible personality, that I'm disrespectful whenever I even mildly disagree with him, and also claimed I was emotionally manipulating him whenever I cried about these types of comments. He's also said a lot of things to me in the past from general comments like, yeah, being gay is wrong because if everyone was gay, humanity would die out. What kind of argument is that? It's like saying, like, he's implying as if it's spreading like it's a disease that's not... Better get everyone vaccinated before we get a dick up your bum. 2, you're not really into women, you just say that because you can't get a man. Again, we can have a civil conversation. Oh, thank goodness. But that is something that I frankly can't forgive him, and at this point, I would not care if he disappeared from my life entirely. Now, given all of that, I do think it's fair that I wouldn't want someone like that at my wedding, especially since it would probably be to another woman. I'm bi, but with a strong preference for women. As a straight male, I totally understand, we stinky. However, when I said that comment and explained that, yeah, I don't want a home of mama at my wedding, my dad got all up in arms, telling me that it's all in the past, that I should just get over it, and he hasn't said anything like that recently, so I shouldn't care anymore. To which I basically said that I don't care, I still don't want him there, and left the conversation at that. My mother did say later that it's ultimately my choice, but she's also always tried to justify my father's behavior by saying that he's just saying things when he's emotional, or that he's just looking out for me in his own way, etc. Now, she also basically said that I should just get over the things he said in my childhood and teenage years because I'm an adult, and these things shouldn't affect me anymore. So we're gonna defend the dad for getting emotional, but when the woman here gets emotional about an issue that she's faced all her life, oh, just get over it, eh? Personally, I've always been still affected by all the things he said to me in the last, but part of me has always internalized the idea that, well, he has gotten better lately. Even if he's never apologized, and maybe I should try to be the bigger person and just forgive and forget instead of holding on to a grudge. So people's thoughts, Nata, the whole, well, I haven't been a recently, tells a lot about him. Even if he really changed, it took him how many years? And now you're supposed to be a bigger person and just forgive and forget? Like, you're a low contact for a reason, and if you'll ever have a wedding, why would there be a person who was terrible to you? I don't see how the OP here can be the a-hole. I guess it's good to encourage, you know, someone learning from their mistakes, but he hasn't really asked for forgiveness. He hasn't actually admitted that he made a mistake in the past. He's just said, oh, that was me in the past, just get over it. Like, he's trying to brush it over. Anyway, next story. Am I the a-hole for showing my wife our budget so she would stop saying she's getting the short end of the stick in our relationship? My 37-year-old female wife, who's 25-year-old female, got really upset with me this afternoon because I decided that after 7 years, it's time to buy a new computer. I've had this computer since before we even met. It's got a 650 Ti in it, for frick's sake. She said that it's not fair for me to buy myself a new computer unless I buy one for her at the same time. Mind you, I bought her computer she is currently using, brand new, in February. Her computer is 6 months old, while mine is 7 years old. I'm calling it right now. Sugar mama relationship, only she's getting no more sugar. I tried to explain that once I get my own computer stuff taken care of, I'll happily start buying parts to upgrade hers, but we cannot afford to buy it all on the same day. Well, she was not having it, and said that my proposed solution would be unfair, since I would have a shiny new toy and she would not. I can see where she's coming from. If I were in her shoes, I'd feel a bit of envy. But the computer I'm using right now blue screens 3 times a day, constantly has graphical errors, and I'm honestly afraid that it's going to just not turn on one of these mornings. So I see get me a working computer as a higher priority than upgrade her computer that already works fine. If I wait until I can afford both at once, I'm going to have no computer for a while when this one dies. So after explaining all of this, my wife blew up. She said that I always get what I want and leave her with the scraps. She said she feels like she perpetually gets the short end of the stick in our relationship. So I pulled up the Google Doc. I've got to say that is probably like the best line to hear in these kind of stories. I just dropped some other flippin' facts on her ass that I use to keep track of our budget. I pointed out to her that I make 4 times what she does and pay 80% of the bills. I showed her that every single year, I consistently spend more money on her than I do on myself. I told her that I don't mind carrying her financially, but it's clear that I am the one getting the short end of this particular stick. Oh my god, what a frickin' burn. Her response was to call me a braggart and say I was trying to put her down for having a schmitty job. She called it schmitty, not me. I respect what she does. I didn't intend to make her feel bad by showing her that info. I was just defending myself against the accusation that I was shorting her, when in fact the exact opposite is true. The funny thing about this story too is the fact that a lot of the comments were completely accusing this person, as this Yatar comment says, "You are 31 years old, went and scooped up a teenager almost right out of high school, predator much, and expect her to have a solid grasp on finances or how to be a functional, independent adult? You're the a-hole." Yeah, gosh, how stupid of you to expect someone at the age of 25 to have some sort of maturity with themselves financially. Like, you should at least expect her to be at least 33 before she knows what she's doing with her money. Everyone sucks here. Yeah, your wife is acting like a child, but why is she so unaware of the budget? Why didn't she already have access to the spreadsheet? Why would you get with a 19-year-old and expect her to know anything about how to run her finances when you have been doing it since? But coincidentally, when a bunch of the comments and the OP themselves was reminding everyone that she's a woman, oh, you are not the a-hole. I honestly do not understand all these everyone sucks here comments, regardless of the age gap. 25 is plenty old enough to have a decent understanding of how finances work, and no, life isn't fair. She just got a brand new computer. She does not need a new one like you do. Yeah, I'll let those thoughts speak for themselves. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mother-in-law that she can't meet her adopted grandchild? I'm a 31-year-old female married to my husband Jack. Hey, that's me! 9 years ago. Due to some health issues, I had to have a total hysterectomy when I was 20, and obviously won't be having children of my own. Jack and I had started dating a month before my surgery, so he has always been very aware that we won't be having biological children, which he is more than okay with and has expressed so repeatedly. Mother-in-law has been a pain in the backside about it since the first time we met. She always had an arsenal of snide remarks about me not being able to give her a real grandchild, and how Jack deserved someone who could give him real children. Jack never stood for it, and she wouldn't stop, and as a result, we've been basically no contact for a decade, other than occasional check-ins, maybe once or twice a year. His dad passed before we met, and he has one sister. We had the pleasure of fostering an absolutely wonderful 10-year-old girl named Lily, and we were thrilled to adopt her a few months ago. Unfortunately, mother-in-law found out and took this as a cue to start bombarding us with texts and calls, and even a few uncalled-for visits to meet her grandchild. Keep in mind, we hadn't spoken to her months prior to this. Jack and I both decided when we were in the process of adopting Lily that at least until she was older, we didn't want the mother-in-law involved, because Lily came from a pretty tough situation, and we don't want to risk the mother-in-law making any harmful comments about real grandchildren. Jack and I sat down to lunch with the mother-in-law and explained that until Lily was at least settled in and we trusted mother-in-law to accept her, that she would not be allowed to meet her. She blew up at us, calling us unforgiving people who are holding a grudge to punish her. Sister-in-law sides with her, saying that we shouldn't be denying her a grandkid because we can't let go of the past. So are we the a-hole?
Hey, sister-in-law, tell me how much you want to get your mum off your back without telling us how much you want to get your mum off your back.
There's a lot of things in the story that do require a bit more context to get a more thorough idea of what's going on here. I mean, how are you not certain that the mother-in-law just is a very bantery person and none of this was actually with any kind of malice? But also, without going into too much information that's completely private, how deep is the issue with Lily needing to be able to settle in before the mother-in-law possibly wrecking things? I mean, either way, it seems like the OP themselves is the only one who can really, truly understand and have a grasp on this situation, so I can't really give myself a valid opinion here. So what do we think? Thoughts down below in the comments. Next story though, am I the a-hole for teaching my mum cultural appropriation? My mum and I have been going to music festivals for as long as I can remember. In the same way people go to the beach, we go to music festivals for vacation and to bond. My mum and I are both white, as is my dad, but he left when I was super young. We have a super good relationship. She makes me breakfast every morning, she's always cheerful, we spend tons of time together, and I can tell her virtually everything. She's always meeting new people, spreading her positive energy, and people love that about her. Anyways, during these festivals, we typically dress up. The past few years that we've gone, my mum has worn a kimono at least one of the nights of every festival that was gifted to her by someone while we were at a festival. This person was not white. I also don't think it's authentic, but even if it were, she's not wearing it in the right setting. Now that I'm a bit older, I understand cultural appropriation and have worked up the courage to address the issue with my mum. She seems to be really depressed now. She doesn't get up early and cook breakfast anymore. She's usually super full of life and cheerful, but she's been kind of moping around the house. She even briefly tossed up the idea of selling our tickets that we had to a local festival and consider a short camping trip instead. I think that when I explained to her that she is offending most people that see us at music festivals, it kind of got to her. I also let her know by wearing the kimono she's using Japanese culture for her own gain just because she thinks it's pretty and fun.
How is she gaining from it though? She didn't kill anyone. She isn't taking over the country and like trying to turn their culture into some sort of fad.
So I talked to my friends about it, and they said I was a dick for saying that to her. They said my mum is the nicest person they've ever met, and people always love interacting with her. They said countless people come up to my mum and compliment her costume. Not a costume, by the way. And it's not doing any harm. It's a festival where everyone is having fun and accepting of everything. They even went as far as to say someone with a Japanese background would encourage her to use a kimono because she spreads joy. Okay, some of that may be true, but I stood my ground and informed them that she is not Japanese, and as a white woman, it's inappropriate to wear it because she thinks it's pretty. I suggested she keep it in the closet until we can find a place to donate it. She later mentions about possibly getting DNA tests to better understand their culture and what we could buy for some festive clothes that celebrate us and wear them together. I mentioned that to her and she just looked at me and then went to her room and shut the door. So do you think my friends were right for saying I was a dick to try and educate my mum about cultural appropriation? I think she just thinks a bit old-fashioned, and had I not told her, she probably would have continued to wear the kimono. So people's thoughts. Nata, you didn't force her to do anything. You gave her information. What she does with the information is up to her. And frankly, I'm disappointed in your mum's reaction. Rather than educating herself on the kimono and Japanese culture, she chooses instead to mope around. Oh, 110% you're the a-hole. For something that was as harmless and unproblematic as wearing a kimono to a festival. I mean, the fact that Japanese are pretty darn happy to share their culture aside, you basically told your mum she is bad and should feel bad, and are hiding under the guise of education. Well, as a straight white guy, I absolutely have merit here. Screw it, I'll throw my hat in the ring, feel free to dismiss it. I think if you're wearing something to make fun of, to mock, to generalize, to apply the style purely for your own personal clout, then yeah, that's disrespectful. You aren't celebrating the style of the culture, you're celebrating yourself in the style. Basically, if you're self-centered about it, you don't get to wear it. So on that basis, is the mum here being self-centered? no, I don't think so at all. And see, that's the harder thing too. I mean, there are so many people who are mixed in race these days. Ironically, for you to assume that some woman who is white wearing a kimono isn't Japanese, that kind of makes you more racist than anyone else on the other end. That's my thoughts though. I mean, if I sound completely ignorant, I understand. I'm not exactly really educated here myself anyway, so feel free to educate me. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take my friend's package with me internationally without opening and checking it first?
Not even gonna read this one. Of course you're not!
Next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting go of the past? I'm a 23-year-old female and I grew up in a smallish town. I was bullied badly by a boy, Brad, from age 12 to 14, who was a couple of grades above me in secondary school. He made my life miserable. My older brother shielded me from some of it, but when he graduated, Brad showed me hell. He had just come out as gay, and I think all of his personality revolved around his adultness at the time. I learned later that he hated my family because I was raised Catholic, which meant automatically we were a bunch of His father disowned him, and his dad was a Catholic, so while I understood his anger, I didn't do anything to him personally, but he made my life miserable anyway. I only enjoyed school after himself and his clique graduated. I tried to report him, but nothing really came out of it. I had to suck it up as the school was the best in the area at that time, and I wasn't going to let him win anyway. Now fast forward to a few years, and I'm in uni in a city a couple of hours away from home, and I find out Brad is in the same department and discipline as me. At this point, I was certain the universe was against me. I know he was just as shocked when he saw me, but I pretended he doesn't exist for my own peace of mind. He never acknowledged my assistance either, and neither did he apologize. My maternal cousin Kenzie is my roommate. We're in the same uni, and we've always been in touch, spending holidays and vacations together growing up. She's known about Brad since forever, as he was a household name in my nuclear family. Last weekend, we went to my cousin's family house for Sunday dinner, and Kenzie's big brother brought his partner to meet the family, and surprise, surprise, Brad walks in with flowers. I asked him what the hell he was doing here, and my aunt demands to know why I was being so rude. I told Kenzie that was Brad, grabbed my phone, and took a walk. Apparently, Kenzie filled everyone in, and Brad was kicked out and broken up with. Oh! Ho, ho, ho! Kenzie's brother was bullied severely, so they take bullying very seriously. I mean, if that's not gonna make him come after you again, I don't know what will. That is a freaking revenge story in any sort of hero movie. Brad and some of his friends have taken to sending me countless messages on Facebook and Instagram, calling me a bitch that can't move on from the past. He said I ruined his life. Am I the a-hole? Well, he's not scoring points by having others go off on you. But everyone sucks here. I mean, it wasn't your house. You can't just demand someone leave. I mean, he sucks for not apologizing for his actions. But you should consider seeing a therapist so that you can learn the proper techniques of coping and forgiving the past. Yeah, you're the a-hole for not speaking with Brad in private first and seeing if he changed before telling everyone how awful he used to be. But you're barely an a-hole. I mean, I get it. Whoa, not the a-hole. I mean, quoting this last bit here alone. So, what? Brad is still a bully. Yeah, the story actually had a lot of opposing thoughts. On one hand, hey, it was a teenage lives. They were a teenager back then. He was going through a lot of issues. You seem to clearly be stuck in the past about all this. You should learn to move on, really, for your own sake of mental health. But also, did you see how the family reacted to this info? I think they would have wanted to know. And even then, that was their action to take, not hers. She merely told them what happened. It was them who chose to absolutely just freaking go no contact on him. But of course, she still was the trigger. So what do you do here? Would it not have been more mature to actually speak with him about all this in private? Hell, maybe even blackmail him a little bit here. You could have made him your absolute slave in that household. Next story. Was I kicked out or did I get myself kicked out? A close friend offered to let me stay in an extra room in their house since I lost my job and I'm still in school. The rent we had agreed on was virtually symbolic and just covered my share of the utilities. A few weeks ago, we came to an agreement that I would stay at hotels or with family because of her health issues. We didn't agree on when exactly I could come back, but I believed it will be less than 2 weeks. We communicated for the first few days of me being away, but with work and school, we both weren't keeping up. After a couple of days, I asked if I could go back and just lock myself in my room because I couldn't afford to keep living in the hotel, and it's impossible to get anything done at my family's house. She rejected that offer, and I understood. On Friday, I found out she was tested to see if I could go back home. She had originally told me she would get tested on Thursday. On Saturday, I brought up that I felt like she didn't share my sense or urgency to go back home. She hadn't kept me updated about what was going on, or when I could expect to come back. She took this as an accusation of her kicking me out and denying me access to my things. And we argued, and she ended up taking all of my things and putting them in her garage. When I learned she packed everything up, I kind of broke down and lost it because they were the few things I could keep with me when I lost my apartment last December. In my opinion, being insulted when I confronted her about the miscommunication she did doesn't warrant moving my things or putting everything I own, including food, in the garage. I am at a loss for words. I am livid, and I feel like I trusted her and relied on her offering me to stay at her house just so she could pack all my things and dump them in her garage the first chance she got. I can stay with family, but I have no way to move my things out of her house when she refuses to talk to me because what I said was out of line. People's thoughts? You might have a case for illegal eviction. She has to give you 90 days notice if you can prove you were living there. I'd call the cops or file a report on her. She has to let you in or be arrested, and then you're let in. Well, you're the a-hole. You had no reason to think it would be less than 2 weeks, except you wanted it to be. I mean, you refer to her place as your home. The room she has allowed you as your room. They aren't. They are hers, and she has generously allowed you to stay for virtually free. She doesn't share your urgency to continue doing you this massive favor. Come on. You aren't entitled to her house, and you act like you are. Yeah, but you could have at least communicated better, you know? Sure, yeah, okay, that's how you feel. You know, you're not entitled to my place. You don't get to come and go as you please. But I should at least owe communicating that to you. Especially when almost all your personal things are here. I feel like that should be a priority. Though honestly, in my experience, the only way you could have caused your housemate or friend to do this to you is if you were being a really problematic housemate to live with. So I don't know, how do you resolve that? How could have she done this better? Hi, hello, welcome to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time here today, and if you could show your support and love for me by liking this video and subscribing and all that, I would absolutely devour you with affection, not like a murderer. Be sure to come back next time for some more stories, and with all that said, my name has been Jack. You have been a lovely person to speak to today, and I will see you next time.